If you've ever asked the question, can we use AI for this? Then perhaps you've not stopped to ask, should we use AI for this? In preparing for this conversation, we stopped to reflect. If we're benchmarking the growth of AI integration to L&D by our own podcast, then the amount of transformation over the past 3 years has been immense. Back in 2023, we maybe included the odd question about AI in our interviews. Now it's rare for a guest not to have an opinion or best practice to share. In this episode, the dial is shifting again. Paulina Bartoszek has led large-scale AI transformation, and she knows what it takes for organizations to adopt AI effectively and responsibly. She's joining us today to challenge what we already call the traditional urgency around AI by shifting the focus from speed and proficiency to policy, safety, and long-term thinking. I'm fascinated to get into a conversation on the pace of change, how we can build cultures that support this, and what successful leadership can look like when AI is never going to be done. So, welcome to In Good Company, Paulina. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for having me. What a lovely introduction to what will be the focus of our conversation today.
Definitely. Well, thank you ever so much for joining me. Before we get started, let's give our audience the opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us about yourself in 60 seconds?
Yeah, I like to call myself a converted change practitioner or change management practitioner. And the word converted is really the key here because, when I started, and that was years back, I started in management consulting. And back then I was a pure strategy and business transformation professional. And I truly, genuinely believed that if you have a good solution, let it be a strategy, a concept, a way of working, a technology, then, the implementation phase, that's easy because this will follow. Not true. Even the most brilliant ideas, they die on paper if there is no proper change management. So then today you can consider me someone who has roots in strategy, experience in business transformation, but is passionate about change management and is a change practitioner. And this is, in fact, something that is super important when we talk about technology adoption and AI adoption specifically.
Great, thank you. And we're also going to be talking about your sort of AI transformation over time, and as part of that is through Lingaro Group, if I'm correct.
Yes.
So perhaps if you could tell us a little bit about Lingaro for the benefit of our audience.
Yeah, so Lingaro is a company with, we like to say, with Polish roots, but global reach. We are a global business working with the biggest brands and corporations around the world. And our focus is data. We are a data specialist. So everything from data strategy, data governance, data architecture, data engineering, as well as advanced analytics and AI. This is our field.
Great. Well, that helps give us some context to the work that you've been doing. So let's start by me asking you to look back on your AI transformation journey. What were the feelings like around AI in the early days? What were the key things that you've kind of learned from them? And would you do anything differently now if you were to go through the AI adoption process again?
Yeah. I would definitely reinterpret the notion of AI urgency. So traditionally, when we talk about tech adoption or any change management, there is this notion of a human factor of return on investment in a new technology. And now to imagine what this human factor is, I want us to imagine a beautiful blue sky and turquoise sea, and then people swimming on what can be called a paddleboard, but what can be also called a SUP board. So SUP, S-U-P, this is actually what the human factor of return on investment in any investment in technology, what it is. And I use this metaphor because it's easier than for people to remember what this actually is. So S stands for speed of adoption. So how fast you can make people learn something new. U stands for ultimate utilization. So how many people, the scale. And then P stands for proficiency of usage. So how deep is the skill? SUP, speed, scale, and skill. And when I started, I considered the sense of urgency is the SUP, like fast, Many people, they need to grow and develop their skills. But now today, after being in this journey for more than a year and a half, I consider this urgency rather somewhere else. This is responsible AI. This is having a proper AI policy in place. This is being mindful of the long-term consequences of using AI. Well, we say AI, but what we really mean is the Gen AI, because that's where the hype is today.
Yeah.
And how using or overly relying on Gen AI, how it translates into our cognitive abilities in long term. And of course, the data, which is Lingaro's bread and butter, but you won't have good AI without good quality data, well structured, clean, the data you can trust.
I think that's a massive part of AI adoption by the masses, the understanding that it's still utilizing data in the same way that Google and general internet searches does. You can only rely on good data to get the most accurate and true results. And I think that's still widely misunderstood by a large population, I would think. In terms of in those early days, I would imagine that there was a fair amount of experimentation. And there probably still is as well. Why does that experimentation matter in AI adoption?
Yeah. In fact, it matters a lot, to an extent that when we officially started the AI transformation program, we made it our guiding principle, experimentation as a guiding principle. And the reason for that is, unlike any other IT implementation or big ERP, enterprise resource planning system implementation, AI adoption is slightly different things. And let me boil it down to three main reasons. So first of all, whenever you plan a larger transformation or IT implementation, you start from defining your end state. So you have a clear definition of done. It's impossible, given the pace of changes with AI, to have a clarity over, okay, what's my definition of done 6 months or 12 months down the road? How will the world look like 12 months down the road? So you won't get any clarity similar to a clarity you can get when you are implementing a traditional IT system, just because things are changing and emerging so fast. So that's the first thing. Now, the second thing is obviously with AI, the psychological complexity which comes with AI. So people rethinking what it means to be a knowledge worker today, what it really means to be a creative professional today, if AI can create and generate so many things. Fear of losing your job, roles being completely transformed. And of course, one can say, well, that's another transformation. As humanity, we've been going through these revolutions before. There were industrial revolutions, steam, electricity, internet, digital. That's another one. But again, never in the history these things were not happening so fast as with AI. So, psychological complexity is the second reason. And then the third reason is really, I like to think about this. Do you recall a movie from a few years back, a Korean one, won an Oscar, Everything Everywhere at Once?
It's one on my list that I've never actually seen, but I remember there being a lot of I remember. Yeah, I remember there being a lot of hype around that film, which I still haven't watched. But then I use the excuse of having two young children.
So there's a lot going on in this movie. Everything, everywhere at once, and that's the same with AI. That AI is something that changes and can affect everyone, from an intern to a CEO, from someone who's working with a client, through technical roles, conceptual work, to a back office staff. So everyone is affected. So it's very difficult to have a centralized unit in a company that would be up to date with everything, because the context of work affects how you use AI, and it's happening in every beat of your business. that's why experimentation is so important. And in fact, we know from research that the companies that are using experimentation as their guiding principle, that's the number one indicator of success, of successful AI adoption, as opposed to these companies who are trying to regulate somehow AI access.
I, I I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that by having a strong experimentation culture around AI, and that can widen out into other adoptions of things, it reduces. I would imagine it reduces the fear element, because there's been a lot of fear around AI, hasn't there? Around, with potential losing jobs, that kind of thing. Does that ring true for you, or do you feel like that? I mean, what's the benefits to you that having a strong, healthy culture around experimentation?
Well, experimentation comes with also the democratization of access, so giving people, broad access to the tools, and letting them try, test, see what works, what doesn't work for them in their context of work. So yeah, it eliminates part of the fear, because it just gives people time to test, to play, to feel how it is. Also, without the fear of, okay, if it turns to be a failure, the way that I imagined using this tool in my process, that's okay. Because in fact, when you're talking about the culture of experimentation, it's about the democratization, yes, but it's also about accepting what we call this experimental failure. Okay, in the business as usual phase, when a business is stable, then of course at all costs we want to avoid this operational failure. That's what we want to eliminate. But when we are testing and trying, accepting the fact that there will be failures, that's also an important element of the culture. So we are also allowing people to fail, and fail fast, and share learnings with others. And yeah.
Yeah, it's all around that kind of learning mindset, isn't it? And having the ability to. I mean, there's an old, a sort of the old phrase of if at first you don't succeed, try again. I don't know if that's it comes across in Polish as well, but it's so true that that experimentation takes away the sort of even the word failure comes away from it as well, because it's just more learning and more learning opportunities, isn't it? So in terms
it's
of
just a signal that something didn't work.
yeah, I think and to be able to, and it's all developing. In fact, it was a university tutor that I did a photography degree, so this phrase didn't really necessarily make sense, but there's the trial and error phrase we often hear, but our university tutor said trial and progression, because you always progress from the error, you don't stop at the error, and that I think that's always stuck with me as a sort of as a way of thinking about when you sort of start to learn something new.
Yeah.
In terms of the how we define success, you mentioned earlier about we're easy to think of things of an adoption as that there's a finish line and an end. How do we define success when AI adoption has no finish line?
So the way we have success defined at Lingaro when it comes to AI, these are three things. Number one is actually having AI built into our people-related processes. And that is from, the definition of skills and the skill set. For different areas and different roles, AI-associated skills obviously will be different, but having a map of the skills. So that's one thing. Having AI baked into our job descriptions, hiring
Right.
expectations, then goal and target settings, as well as including AI in the development plans of people. So it's getting serious when people know and understand that actually there is this expectation of them to grow and learn AI. And as well as, performance evaluation at some point will also include this AI components. And of course, we are not there yet, but I expect in 2026 our, performance evaluation will include an AI component. So, having AI in different AI related processes, then really, proficiency in a specific tool, I don't think it's a good indicator of success because these tools change so fast.
Yeah.
And one tool is great today, there is another one emerging, and 6 months later we'll be using this something else. So I don't see success through the lens of a specific tool. I rather see it through the lens of mindset. And an
Right.
ideal mindset is when, everyone in the company, and this I would consider an ultimate success indicator. When everyone in the company, when they have a task at hand, they will ask themselves, okay, so how could I approach this task differently today because AI is here? If I have a challenge, how can I approach this challenge differently today because AI is here? Just asking themselves this question. And ideally, if the answer is, well, I don't know, they would probably should go and ask AI. How should AI help me with solving this problem or this, or help me with this task? So that's another thing. Uh, but really, just linking it back from where we started. So the sense of urgency shifting from this fear of missing out to let's be responsible and let's focus on good rules and guidelines for people. The very fact that I can use AI for something, it doesn't mean I should be using AI for this thing. So asking ourselves, should I use AI for this? For example, if I have something to communicate and I want to record a video, there is the temptation of, oh, instead of me actually doing this, writing a script for me, recording myself, spending some time with this, let me use an AI avatar of myself. They will do the work. Well, is it the way that we want our communication to look like in business? I stand on a position that no, not at all. So, like having this moment of reflection of, okay, I could, but well, should I use AI for this?
It's such an important thing that I think is still. I think we're seeing pockets of AI resistance, perhaps, with people seeing, the potential pitfalls and the potential risks, maybe, of solely relying on AI. You can scroll through Instagram and TikTok and things and see some memes and jokes around, like, how people become so reliant on AI, they, you need to even have help when somebody knocks at the door. That's one I saw. What do I do here? And so, yeah, I think that it could easily be a genuine risk where people become so reliant that their sort of own human skills suffer as a result. So my next question to you is around those human skills. It's written above my shoulder here about, we're a human company and we're finding ways of making sure that we're focusing on the skills that AI can't necessarily impart on people. So to you then, how do we protect those human skills in these AI powered workplaces? Like, what do we need to? I think that is clear that we do. What would you say the role is for HR and L&D, and for leaders?
Yeah, I would start from the term generative AI itself. Like, think about it for a moment. Generative AI, it means that it generates. It mimics the way that human beings generate things. Now, do I want to keep this ability to be able to generate something, to create something, or I'm fine outsourcing it completely to AI, and over time it will lead to erosion of my cognitive skills because cognitive skills, my muscle, if I don't use it, then it leads to gradual atrophy of my cognitive capabilities. So yeah, I've been reflecting lately on this very term generative. I would like to be in long term, I would like to be someone who is able to generate things, who
Mm,
is able to think, to write, to create. I don't want to overly outsource it to AI.
mm,
So, in companies, HR, L&D, even starting this conversation, just finding some time, some room, opportunity to reflect on
mm.
this during workshops, during conversation about the importance of AI, having also this agenda item. Let's think about our cognitive skills, how it affects us, how will this in long term overly relying and outsourcing our thinking to AI. Well, I think in long term, it's not worth it. So
Mm,
let's do it, but let's do it sparingly
mm.
and try to still, stretch the muscle that we have in here.
It'll be really interesting to see if that how long the mindset of that lasts, and I truly hope it does. I wonder if by when as new generations join organisations that are sort of grown up with an AI powered world, where it'll be, in 5-10 years time. I think and how my eldest son's 5 years old, my youngest son's one, and what the world of work will be like for them when they start in the workplace. It'll be fascinating to see how different it is then, in the same way that it's massively different from when we started at the age of 18, 16, whatever. And how things have changed. And I think I wouldn't want to guess at how old you are, but I'm 38. Even in my career, the way technology has been integrated into the world of work is significantly different in that time span.
Mhm.
And it's so yeah, it just with the rate that things are changing, it'll be it's changing so fast. I really wanted to pick up on also what you said there about the use it or lose it part of cognitive skills. It's so true that, and it's a real risk at the moment, isn't it? That if we're not careful, we can become so reliant on getting AI to think for us that we become mentally lazy, and I think that yeah. And there's the last piece I wanted to, before I move on to my next question to you and give you a chance to respond, is that the element of trust, and that goes back to what you were saying earlier about the data. I think we're still, particularly with, again, if I use social media as an example, there are so many more videos and things that are being generated by AI models, that again, that it's coming from a prompt, so there's still a human involved in some way, but the being able to tell apart the output from human abilities and
Mhm.
from AI abilities, the gap is much smaller than it ever used to be, and now at the moment that gap is the biggest it will ever be, because it's only going to shrink.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we go the opposite way, where we then start to distrust AI outputs because there's that potential for lack of authenticity. Is there anything that you've experienced in your AI adoption journey that's kind of seen that play out?
Yeah. I think, paradoxically, yeah, and you're very right, soon, like today, it's still easy to tell the difference between AI generated video and a video that was done traditionally. But soon, this difference will be impossible to tell.
Mm,
So when everything can be created using AI, I think that what will truly matter is a human to human conversation, a
mm,
human to human connection, and I think that we will observe, for those people who really want to make an impact, they will interact with themselves more often through in-person connections,
mm,
probably even in a physical space
mm,
together without any AI filter. Because writing is so easy today. I can write anything using AI.
mm,
Social media content can be created in seconds using
mm,
AI. Is there a thinking human being behind it? I don't know. But the only way you actually can tell that, oh, okay, this person, it's really worth having a conversation with, is through in-person conversation. So my sense is that we will see the rise of human to human connection for those people who care, really. And I also think paradoxically it's worth investing in communication skills today, but also it's worth investing in writing skills, but because I think this will be the skill of the future, because
Mm.
writing is really a thinking skill. When you write through this linear process of putting words and sentences together, that's the clarity of thinking that you build. So yes, human to human interaction, actual communication skills, and preserving your writing skill. I believe this will be something worth investing in long term.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny, as you were talking then, I was reflecting about, the AI adoption is not the first time we've ever experienced the rapid growth of, or the rapid disruption, let's say, of technology in sort of the way we live our lives. You think back to the iPhone, and the way that smartphones have, and it could be argued that was, because at the time it was the next best thing. It was, the fact what this device could do. And then, fast forward 10, 15 years, and you're seeing the kind of detrimental impacts it can have potentially, on people's mental well-being, those types of things. And I think AI is very similar. In terms of, and I'm not, this isn't having a go at either of those things, because I think it's the way it kind of gets utilized, and when everything's kind of early adoption, it's hard to sort of see past. But I think we are seeing kind of both the positives and negatives out of AI, and I think we just need to navigate our way through that in whatever way it best suits us. In terms of the future of AI, what excites you, and perhaps what are you more nervous about with the future? Because I suspect they're a bit of both. I think you've kind of touched on a couple of things, but first of all, let's hear about what excites you about AI's
Uh,
future.
what excites me is really that I can now, and I do it often and often, more often, use my voice as my keyboard. So, like, instead of
Yeah.
writing something, whenever I have an exchange, a conversation with my AI assistant, I'm just using my voice. So prompts are not written any longer by me;
Mm,
they are
mm,
expressed verbally. So I love it because as well it saves time. So this definitely something that excites me. What gets me nervous? I think we touched on this in a previous question. This gradual bankruptcy of mind, I think, and
mm,
atrophy of cognitive skills. That really, yeah, that's my biggest concern. That's why, even though I'm a huge Gen AI enthusiast, I use it
mm,
a lot myself. I
mm,
run this efforts of AI adoption at our company, but I try to spend time reflecting on how it really affects me and
mm,
my cognitive skills. And also, okay, I'm 42 today. When I'm 70, I want to be still, someone who thinks sharp, thinks quick, and how the way that I'm using AI today, how will it affect my cognitive skills 30
mm.
years down the road? So this
Do you
is the
know?
time horizon that I'm
And I think
looking at.
that's probably the best place to be with it, though, isn't it? Is that having that awareness of, so being able to adopt it and not be scared by AI. So it means you're not just discounting it and staying clear of it, and having a curiosity around it, but then also having an awareness of the potential pitfalls. I think that's probably the best place you can be when it comes to an approach to AI. In the same way that that approach applies to all other technology. We all see, a screen time report at the end of the week. and go, oh, that's a bit high. Should probably not look at it. Yeah.
How is it even possible?
Yeah, exactly.
Must
But
be
we all know, like, there's an awareness of it, and it's what we do about it that makes the difference, isn't it? So I think that's probably the best place to be with it. So, yeah, I mean, there's AI is such a massive topic now, and it's almost becoming that thing where it almost won't be a conversation topic because it will just be our daily lives, won't it? It's it still feels like there's a lot of change happened and also coming as well with it, because I think there was a tech influencer that put it once, is that AI is the worst it's ever going to be right this moment, and it's a really weird thing to and yet 2 years ago, or not even 2 years ago, there was AI could do some stuff, but now like this, and it's the rate at which it's changing is just crazy. So yeah, it's fascinating, but we have run out of time for today. But thank you ever so much for giving us your time. I do have one final question for you before I let you go, which is the same question we ask all of our guests on this podcast, which is, if you had the opportunity to speak to your younger self, if you were starting your career again, what would be the best piece of advice you'd give yourself?
And now let's link it back to where we started with the first question. I would have invested in my understanding of the discipline of change management earlier in my career. I think that still it's one of the most misunderstood disciplines of business, change management, overly simplified. Often people equate the change management notion with communication and training. And of course, communication and training is part of change management, but that's much more than that. So I'm genuinely passionate about this discipline, and I think that's also one of the skills of the future, still worth investing in. So yeah, I wish I would have started my journey with change management sooner, years back.
Yeah, great piece of advice. And it's funny, isn't it? Would you feel like you live by that advice now? Do you feel like you? I mean, I would say that you do, based on our previous, past half an hour of conversation. But do you feel like you live by your own advice?
Oh yes, yeah. Definitely, no doubt.
Amazing. Listen, it's been absolutely brilliant having you on. Thank you ever so much. It's been great. And we'll let you get back to your day because I know you're busy. But Paulina, thank you one final time from me. It's been absolutely wonderful having you on today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So that just leaves me to say that if you'd like to find out any more about Impact, or perhaps you'd like to find out more about Lingaro, or you'd like to find out, connect with us on LinkedIn, then you can find all of the links that you need in the description of where you found today's episode. So thank you one final time to Paulina for joining me today. Thank you, Paulina. And until the next time, take care.